All right, so Brian Cashman spoke at about 11 o'clock this morning in Tampa, Florida, before the Yankees game against the Twins, which you could watch on Yes or on ESPN right now with Garrett Cole starting. And we'll get into the lineup that they're rolling out there in just a moment. But he spoke about Giancarlo Stanton and Stanton's absence. And the Yankee GM was asked about his timeline for his right-handed slugger.
So ultimately, he was dealing with it in the end of last year, and obviously thought we were in a good place. And I think he was feeling like in a good place, but then it reared its ugly head, about 3 weeks before camp, and is my understanding. And so now we're dealing with it. So give it the time it needs, and clearly look forward to getting him back at some point. But obviously, in the near term, that won't be the case.
All right, now, the thing that stands out to you is it bothered him last year, and then he stopped all activity, obviously, when the season ended, and then it felt okay. And then when he tried to start activity again, it didn't feel great. Surgery does correct this problem, but it's usually a 3-month recovery. And you wonder why it wasn't done. I mean, to sit back and go, there was no pain after the World Series. Okay, there was no action either. And Brian was asked, was surgery considered for Stanton?
It'd be a last resort. I can't rule out a surgery, but I know it's not recommended in the front end of this thing. But obviously, if you have a number of different failed attempts, then you start looking at different ways of intervention.
Well, what we found out during the year, or what we found out recently, is that this bothered him all throughout the season last year. All throughout the season. And the pain was very, very high. These are what the Yankees are telling us. So they obviously were rehabbing it, and it didn't get better. The guy was playing through extraordinary pain and had an extraordinary postseason. And you do wonder why not having surgery during the winter was, in fact, a viable option. And I know what Brian's saying, it's the last resort, but again, he was bothered all throughout the season. High pain was the phrase that's used. And it was never thought of to have the surgery. Now, he's had the PRP injection. And what that is they take the blood, they spin it, they cleanse it, whatever the case. I'm being very parochial with it. And then they inject it back into your body. And it's supposed to speed up healing. Brian said that Cashman is going to have that Stanton's going to have a second PRP injection. And he was asked, will that allow him to play without pain?
I don't know. I mean, obviously the PRP injections are designed to help the healing process, and you hope that's the case, but you just have to let it all. A, you have to let it take, and B, you have to let it play out, and then hopefully you get a positive resolution to it. But in most of things, you're dealing with, unless it's like a hamstring or stuff like that, it's just you're in the little bit of the unknown, and you're trying to treat everything conservatively, and you hope for the best, but you have to give it the time to play out first until you know where you're sitting. So.
Now, Cashman was finally asked, because Stanton has been in New York this whole time, dealing with a personal matter, which nobody is revealing, and I guess nobody has to reveal, but you hope that that doesn't become an issue as well, whatever the personal issue is. And Cashman was asked, will Stanton be back here tomorrow?
I think he'll travel back to Tampa. Whether he's here by tomorrow to be in front of you guys or not, that remains to be seen. I know we're going to the East Coast, but he's heading back to Tampa. He'll be here this weekend. But the travel schedule for him is up now. It's not like he can do much anyway. So,
well, let's really talk turkey here. This is a significant loss for the Yankees because when you're trying to read the tea leaves, I don't think he's going to be back anytime soon. I mean, we're March 6th. The season's starting on March 27th. So there's not time for him to be ready. And the first PRP injection obviously didn't really do that much because that's why there's a second one that he's getting today. And this is in both elbows, by the way. Both. Now, the ramp up in spring training for a hitter is usually about 4 weeks. So the way it seems right now, I don't think he's swinging the bat anytime soon. Anytime soon. So I think conservatively, and this is just me guessing, he's going to miss about 2 months of the season if all goes well. And if you don't think that's significant, then you're really not looking at the lay of the land with the Yankees. Because the one thing that this team is lacking is a right-handed bat. And Stanton is that right-handed bat. Stanton is also the guy that was going to provide protection for Judge and pick up some of the slack of Juan Soto not being here and being across the river in Queens. This is a big deal. This is a big deal. And the Yankees are kind of caught betwixt and between when it comes to Stanton, because if you go out, and I'm just throwing this name out there, you go out there and get J.D. Martinez, and then Stanton comes back middle of May, end of May. What are you going to do with J.D. Martinez and Giancarlo Stanton on the same team? They're both DHs. That's untenable. It's unworkable. So you're kind of landlocked. What do? You can't have them both. So the ideal thing is to pick up a big-time right-handed hitter who also can play the field. Is that guy Nolan Arenado? I have no idea. Again, I'm not quite sure they're going to go there. I'm not quite sure that the Cardinals would pick up enough of the salary for them to go there. And I don't even know if that's the true answer, because I don't know if Nolan Arenado is going to be a kind of damage guy that Stanton is going to be. You always, when you try to handicap the Yankees, and Stanton's a part of the team, what you try to do is you try to figure out, well, when is he going to miss time? How long is it going to be? And so what you do is you think that Giancarlo is going to suffer at some point a lower body muscle injury, hamstring, quad, calf, something like that. It happens every year. He's had one injury-free year, essentially, with the Yankees. That was his first one in 2018. I think he played 158 games. Can you imagine? So you kind of plug that in somewhere in the middle of the season. And maybe you can absorb it better at that time because you could get the lay of the land. This is right smack dab in the beginning of the season. And once you get through this, if you get through this, he's still going to suffer that lower body injury, isn't he? You're looking at a season now that if somebody said to you, over under 90 games played, you're going under. Because if he misses 2 months, and you essentially give a team about 30 games a month, I mean, that's rounding up. So let's say 25 a month. So he's going to miss 50 right at the start. Right at the start, missing 50. That's before the annual lower body injury. You can't just slough this off if you're the Yankees or if you're a Yankee fan. And that's why I said this a couple of weeks back. And I'm a Giancarlo Stanton fan. I don't know, in my time covering sports in New York, which is over 40 years now, that I've ever seen a guy handle what New York is about better than Giancarlo. He's been booed, never strikes at the fans, never says the wrong thing. When he gets booed, he says, I'd boo too. I understand why they boo. He does everything right when it comes to that. But if you could undo this trade, it's become an albatross for the Yankees. It was not a good trade in retrospect. Now, we can't sit here and be geniuses and try to be smarter than Brian Cashman and say that we too would not have made that deal. Because the player that was acquired had just hit 59 home runs and won the MVP. Of course you make that deal. Of course you do. But if you could have a do-over, you don't. And I know what everybody's sitting there thinking is they're either listening on their app or on 880. They're thinking, well, look how great he is in the postseason. Yeah, he is. Have they won a title with him? As great as he's been. Now, it hasn't been, they have not won they haven't not won a title because of him. And he's given them a chance to win a title, but they haven't. That's why Giancarlo Stanton has been a net loss for them. It's tied up money that could have been spent elsewhere. It's tied up the DH spot because he's a one-dimensional player. He's not the player they acquired. That's why you can't rip the Yankees for acquiring him. It was a steal at the time. Try to bring yourself back to that time and go, wow, they got the reigning National League MVP who just hit 59 home runs. How could you not do it? This was an outfielder. He didn't DH. There was no DH in the National League. This was a player, a physical specimen. And he was that guy in 2018, the first year the Yankees got him. Now, he is a one-dimensional guy who still has years left on his contract, tying up money that the Yankees could spend elsewhere to plug that hole and make their team more versatile. Use that DH spot to give people a rest instead of tying it up. And also, when you have Giancarlo on your team, what you in fact are doing is you're tying yourself in knots. Because you can't get a like player because he might come back. And you can't get a like player because you have the money tied up in him. So he's an all or nothing player right now. And you have him for 3 more years. It's an albatross. And again, I hate saying it because I like the guy. He's a gentleman, and when he's healthy, he's still a force. But he can't run. He can't play the field. He just can't. That's why you'll never hear me rip him doing games on yes when he's jogging to first base. He cannot run. It's not that he chooses not to run. He can't run. His body doesn't allow him to. So he can't play the field and he can't run. He's a base-to-base guy. He does damage. When he impacts the baseball, he does damage. But for anybody to sit back and go, this is not a big deal, it's a big deal. A team that's short on right-handed power, right, has now lost its big right-handed hitter. Because even with Stanton there, they needed another right-handed bat. So now they still need that right-handed bat, and they've got to fill in for Stanton. And one of the things that worries me about this Yankee team, everybody, doesn't really have depth. They're not injury-proof. They're not. They've traded a lot of people over the years to make trades to bulk up for the postseason. They traded their pitching depth to get Soto, and that's a deal you do over and over and over again. Sorry, I know he was here for 1 year, but he helped you get to the World Series. You have to make that deal. They did the right thing. I mean, most minor leaguers don't make it. That was a deal that had to be made. But now they're in a situation where something has to be done. I would say before the Yankees play Milwaukee at the stadium on opening day, I think they've got to acquire some kind of right-handed bat. I don't know if it's going to be a big-time right-handed bat, but you got to level out the lineup. Because think about this. The thing that kind of levels the lineup for the Yankees is the switch hitters, right? Dominguez is not a good right-handed hitter. So when a team does throw a lefty, and watch, I bet you the Brewers throw 2 lefties at the Yankees in those first 3 games. When a team throws a lefty at the Yankees, Dominguez turns around to the right side where he's subpar to left, and either you lose Oswaldo Cabrera out of the lineup or he turns around to the right side where he's not a good hitter. So the balance that switch hitting gives you doesn't exist with the Yankees because their switch hitters are better, much better, from the left side. Now, as the Yankees are playing the Twins right now at Steinbrenner Field, they ran out of starting lineup. And it caught my eye when I saw it earlier because I think this could be the starting lineup for opening day. Austin Wells leading off and catching. Yeah, the Yankees in their history have never had a catcher lead off in the starting lineup. They've had it in spring training, but never, ever have they had a catcher lead off. They like Wells, his eye, his patience at the plate. So he's leading off today. Batting second and DHing is Aaron Judge. The number 3 hitter is the right fielder, Cody Bellinger. Now, when I say that this is the opening day lineup, obviously Judge would be playing right field. but I'll tell you where, that could change in this lineup. Goldschmidt plays first base and cleans up. Jazz Chisholm Jr. at second base will bat fifth. Batting sixth, playing shortstop, Anthony Volpe. Jason Dominguez in left field is going to bat seventh. Batting eighth is Trent Grisham and playing center field. And Oswaldo Cabrera at third base will bat ninth. So what they've done, as you can see, Wells lefty, Judge righty, Bellinger lefty, Goldschmidt righty, Chisholm lefty, Volpe righty, Dominguez switch hitter, Grisham righty, Oswaldo Cabrera switch hitter. So if you take Aaron Judge and you make him the right fielder, make Cody Bellinger in center, then your DH is probably going to be Ben Rice or some right-handed batter, and that DH would probably bat eighth because I don't think they'll play Grisham against a righty. But if there's a lefty that Milwaukee throws out there, this is probably your lineup. Now you decide whether you think it's good or not. Also, Cashman did discuss today Louis Heel. We said the other day, if it's just a lat injury, it's probably 3 months, maybe even a little bit more. But they were doing further tests, and he was up in New York getting an MRI to see if there's any damage in there that had to be surgically repaired. The good news is it came back, it's just a lat tear. But it's a grade 2 lat tear, and you're hoping against hope that it's just 3 months. Might be more. I don't think we're going to see him until July. 1-800-919-3776. That's the number. I always talk every day about you're the co-host, and the way you are the co-host is 1-800-919-3776. But also there's ways that you can email us because it's hard to get through. I understand that. So we have our own email address where you can submit things that you want to ask me. It's tmksespn@gmail.com. tmksespn@gmail.com. Now, if you'd like to reach us social media through X, and that might be more immediate, well, then just go to my personal X address at RealMichaelK, and I'll be perusing throughout the show, and if there's something of interest that comes up, I'll address that as well. We're going to talk to John Ireland, who's the play-by-play voice of the Los Angeles Lakers on 710 ESPN. We're going to talk to him at 2 o'clock because the Knicks have a big game against the Lakers tonight. Knicks start a stretch that's going to tell you exactly where they are. I know they're in L.A. right now, but where they are standing-wise. What's their positioning going to be? Because don't look now. Milwaukee is playing unbelievable basketball, and they're creeping closer to the Knicks. I think it's like 3.5 or 4 games. So that's still a pretty good lead with about 20 games left. But if the Knicks really, really crap the bed on this West Coast swing, Milwaukee could make some ground up. And then all of a sudden you're looking at the 4th seed, which might end up being better because then you're going to play the 5th seed in the first round. And you would avoid Boston in the second round. But I don't think that's what the Knicks are thinking. You can't plan like that. You got to win the games that you have to win. 1-800-919-3776. And let's go to the phones. Let's go to Hector in Queens. Hector.
Hey, Mike. You giving up that lineup gave me chills. Just waiting for real-time baseball, man. I can't wait.
Yeah, me neither.
So Stanton, man, I hear you, man. It is a bad contract, but next year he makes 19. The following year he makes 15. So I wanted to ask you, I think Stanton plays out his contract with the Yankees because he is still kind of a very valuable bat in the postseason. But I'm talking about DJ LeMahieu. When is the plug pulled with him, man? If you could give me some insight on that. Thank you, Michael.
Well, you know what? The Yankees do not like paying people for not working. So if he becomes an absolute bust and he can't get himself healthy, maybe he just walks away and they have some kind of settlement. But I'm not sure that they just pull the plug on him. If he becomes an albatross, they will. Because they did, right, with Aaron Hicks. They did with Aaron Hicks. So I think they would keep him throughout this year. And if it turns out that he has another just terrible year where he can't stay healthy, you know what? then they'll probably release him at the end of the year and they'll eat the $15 million. You know, the one thing that they could feel better about if they eat any of that money, it was originally going to be a $90 million 4-year contract because he was coming off a great season. And the Yankees wanted to amortize the cost of that and lessen the value of the AAV, so they made it 6 years, $90 million, rather than 4 years, $90 million. So LeMahieu wanted $90 million. Didn't care how he was going to get it. He wanted $90 million. Well, you got your 4 years out of him, and you know what? It was not a good contract because he never performed to the level that he performed before he got the contract because his body broke down. But I don't think they're going to release him this year. I don't think they'd ever release Stanton because when Stanton's healthy, he is a force. But he does cause you a conundrum when you're building a team. How much do you have to plan for him being hurt? Who is going to step in if he's hurt? Let's go to Nick in Astoria. Nick.
Hi, Michael. How are you? You're amazing.
Thank you, man. I'm good. How you doing?
I'm okay. Just wanted to say again, I think I'm disappointed with Cashman because if he wasn't willing to trade Heel for Kyle Tucker, look what's up now. You know, Heel is hurt. Kyle Tucker's a really good player. And I'm very upset with the Yankees. I mean, their offseason was pretty good. I still think Boston had a better offseason, and of course the Dodgers. But like you always say, if you're over the salary cap by $2 million or $5 million, you know, they never go for it. Like, we still need a third baseman. I feel like, and we have no bench. I feel like we're still like, you know, in the middle. You know, I don't know if we're going to even make the playoffs this year. Because,
they'll make the playoffs, Nick. But let me ask you this question, Nick. It wasn't just Heel. They also wanted George Lombard Jr. Would you have given up this guy who everybody thinks is going to be an absolute star? Because they got burned once before making a deal for a guy for 1 year. So Tucker's on the last year of his deal. So it looks good now. It looks good now because Heel got hurt. Well, why don't we deal Heel? But would you have felt comfortable if you dealt the reigning Rookie of the Year and George Lombard Jr.?
I would have, because also in the past we over put our prospects like really high and we get burned, like with Andujar, with I forgot the redhead's name, the outfielder. He was supposed to be
Frazier.
Frazier. You know, sometimes we hold on to our prospects too long, and then they're duds. You know, I think if you have to go for it, I'd rather take Kyle Tucker. He's young. You know, he's a step below. You know, a notch below Soto, and I don't think the contract would have been as big. And, you know, Soto, you know, was a big risk, but we did make the World Series, but you knew Soto was all about the money. I don't think Kyle Tucker's like Soto,
let's put that. I mean, I'm not sure I can sign off on that, Nick. I think all players, you know, want the most money. So Kyle Tucker is going to get a lot of money because if we're talking about Vlad Guerrero Jr., right? Where, you know, he might get $500 million. I'm sorry. Kyle Tucker Jr. is a better player than Vlad. A more complete player. I think he's a year or two older. Yankees could get Kyle Tucker Jr. if the Cubs stub their toe and maybe they trade him because Cubs don't spend a lot of money. Yankees do. If you look at the rankings that came out yesterday, Yankees spent the second most money in baseball last year. The Mets were number one. The Yankees were number two. The Dodgers were like 276. The Yankees were well over 300. So you can't keep giving that tired old refrain that the Yankees don't go for it. They went for it last year. They're going for it this year. They have a $306 million payroll. They're over that threshold again for the third straight year. Would I have liked to get Tucker? Yeah. But are you going to keep emptying your farm system? And I know that they do overvalue prospects. Sometimes they're prospect tuggers. I get it. I understand that. But sometimes you have to trust your evaluation. And everybody in baseball is saying that George Lombard Jr. is an absolute stud. Probably going to be the third baseman in 2026 at some point. And then maybe you get Kyle Tucker Jr. or Kyle Tucker as a free agent, without having to give up anything. Because the Yankees look at it and go, we're good enough again to get to the World Series without Kyle Tucker, and then we can actually be better because Kyle Tucker will become available as a free agent when Bellinger is going to opt out of his contract if he has a good year. So you take the $26 million you're spending on Bellinger, and you put that toward Tucker, and all of a sudden you have a solution for a long time. But you can't look at it, well, they should have given up Heel because he got hurt. They had no idea that Heel was going to get hurt.